please limit their comments to 3 minutes. Anybody wishing to address the board can do so at this time.
Good evening. My name's Walt Rollins. I live at 49 Shadows End Lane, Milford, Connecticut. My wife and I have been Milford residents for over 57 years. We are both graduates of the Milford school system, parents of 3 children who attended Milford public schools and are successful in their adult life as a result of that education, a grandfather of 2 future students, and I am a recently retired history teacher of 42 years, most of those working at Foreign High School. I've had the privilege to teach our mayor, Ben Blake, and Alderman Jay Tranquilli. As some of you know, I only speak before you when there is something very important to address. So I hope you listen to me very carefully and seriously consider what I'm going to discuss with you tonight. I am well aware that the Board of Aldermen has no direct authority over Board of Ed policy, but you control the purse strings, and you need to be aware of what programs they are allocating our tax dollars to. I speak to you tonight to inform you so you can be better prepared to ask the right questions at budget time. I thank you for holding public meetings rather than the cowardly Zoom meetings that the Board of Ed is holding. Our school system has been taken over by proponents of a dangerous and divisive philosophy without most being aware it has taken place. It is cleverly disguised and implemented without parents and the taxpayers knowing of its adoption. It has several names which sound very progressive and modern, but it promotes the very opposite of what its proponents claim. It is called social and emotional learning, or SEL for short. It is a race-based philosophy promoted by the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, or CASEL for short, C-A-S-E-L. CASEL uses SEL curriculum as a vehicle for implementing critical race theory into our classrooms. It trains students to become, and I quote from their literature, social justice warriors through a stealthy indoctrination system which violates both your child's and your parental rights and privacy. One common term we find throughout this literature is the word equity. Equity is the basis of all SEL core competencies, which calls for all teaching and learning to be done through, and I quote from their literature, an equity lens. Equity sounds like a great thing. What could be bad about that, you might ask? It might make you think they're talking about an equal education for all. But what is the difference between equality and equity? Equality in education means we treat all children the same. Equity in education entails race-based social engineering, which favors selected aggrieved minorities. Put another way, equity means treating some students better than others depending on the level of oppression they claim for themselves or others claim for them, based on their immutable qualities like skin color or gender. Educational leaders use phrases like equitable classrooms and racial equity and equitable outcomes and self-awareness. These are all the catchphrases and buzzwords of critical race theory. Based on the CASEL resource, Equity and Social and Emotional Learning, a cultural analysis, which drives this philosophy, these objectives will be achieved in the classroom, and I quote their literature, by making explicit such issues as power, privilege, prejudice, discrimination, and social justice in the field of SEL. CASEL's own president and CEO advocates SEL be used, and I quote him, to favor certain students over others primarily because of their race. We see SEL as a tool for anti-racism, end of quotes. Do the parents of Milford school children know their students are being used as a part of an untried cultural and social experiment which is taking valuable class time away from their children through SEL-based lessons and assignments? This time can be better used to teach the fundamentals of reading, writing, and arithmetic that many of our students are lacking. Was the Board of Aldermen told of the nature of this race-based program before it approved hundreds of thousands of dollars to be allocated to the Board of Ed so they can implement this experimental agenda? Do you know our teachers are being trained in implicit bias seminars, where they are made to be aware of their white privilege? Has anyone even asked the question? I'm only scratching the surface in the few minutes I've been allotted to speak to you. Many teachers and administrators might not be fully aware of the underlying agenda of SEL. I know some who are aware, but are afraid to voice their opposition for fear of retaliation. The proponents of SEL are very open and blunt about their beliefs and goals. Most likely, parents and government officials are in the dark or afraid to object, fearing they would be labeled as racists. But SEL is by its very nature racist. I have previously emailed every Board of Alderman member with public email addresses, and every Board of Ed member and Mayor Blake about my concerns. I have heard back from Sue Glennon of the Board of Ed. She denies this curriculum and philosophy is being used in Milford. She's either naive or being very dishonest. In a recent letter limited to parents and staff, the superintendent of schools denied they are implementing critical race theory. Yet if one reads her letter, she boasts of implementing the very idea set forth in SEL, which offers cover for CRT. In the Board of Ed press release for the hiring of Elba Cruz to the position of, now get this, Supervisor for Equity and Engagement. Right there, her title tells you everything you need to know. All one has to do is read the first paragraph where it states, the position will ensure the Board of Ed resolution on race, equity, and social justice is enacted in all areas of our organization, curriculum, instruction, assessment, policies, human resources, and operations. It goes on stating her key focus will be that all students have equity in access, experiences, and outcomes, with emphasis on race, equity, and social justice becoming a learning priority in the city of Milford, end of quotes. What more do you need? The school system is also training teachers using a source material by Kendi and D'Angelo.
Sir, excuse me,
Yes.
are you just about ready to wrap up?
Yes.
You're already past 6 minutes, so I just want to let you know.
Okay.
I'd like to relinquish my time to Mr. Rollins, please. Thank you.
The school system is also training teachers using a source material by Kendi and D'Angelis, a book called White Fragility. They do not openly call it critical race theory or CRT, but this material clearly states that race is the only lens through which to look at America and its history. They promote the idea that white oppression is a common theme throughout our nation's history and that we need to act less white and eschew white values. That there is a need for future reparations from the white oppressors and retaliatory discrimination against them as well. Lastly, they believe capitalism needs to be replaced along with the national pride Americans have for their country and culture. The superintendent may call it anything she wishes, but this new policy, which was not in effect as early as the spring of 2020, it was not in effect when I retired in June of 2019. If it walks, talks, and looks like a duck, it's a duck. I don't believe the current Board of Ed is being honest with the public. The word race appears everywhere in their PowerPoints, in their take-home assignments, and even in the job descriptions of their new administrative hires. Does the Board of Ed even know what the policies are that they are approving, or they are purposely being evasive? Either answer is alarming and should raise concerns about what they are doing as a board. I never, as a teacher, had to attend professional development days on racial equity in the classroom, as teachers were required to do at least 3 times this past year. What has happened in Milford in the past few months which calls for such actions and such a radical shift in educational policy? Is there a wave of racism sweeping the school system? Is it being mandated by the state? Is there funding involved? Can we opt out like other communities? Have closet Marxists taken over the Board of Ed? If not, why is precious student contact time with teachers being wasted on this? Many people would like to know. No one is sugarcoating slavery or its legacy in this criticism of this divisive philosophy. No one is saying racism is a good thing, no matter who practices it. Our nation has come a long way from the days of Jim Crow and de facto segregation. The embers of racism have been virtually extinguished across this country. But this race-based agenda is providing the oxygen to feed the remaining embers by continuing to spread the philosophy of hate and a new form of segregation. Is this what we really want our teachers and our children to be focusing on in our school throughout the entire curriculum? CRT is literally indoctrinating our children and teenagers to hate themselves, others, in America. It is divisive rather than a unifying agent. We must continue to ask the hard questions and continue to press for answers and prove that this is not the path we are pursuing in Milford. If public school officials continue to pretend this indoctrination is good for our kids, I believe parents must consider removing their children from the school system before further damage is done. Will your child be the one who will suffer or be a victim in this quest for equity in the classroom? Parents, community members, and the Board of Aldermen who funds these race-based programs must start asking the right questions. I thank you. Thank you for your time, Ray.
Mr. Chair.